Greetings and welcome to the second part of this tutorial. So if you don't want to learn about the material creation for this and just how to animate it, well, you can skip the first part. But if you were just continuing where I left off in the first part, where we did all the material setup for this rubber bouncing ball, so if you want to learn about that, you can watch the first part of this. But let's start on and let's animate a bunch of these balls dropping, and let's see how we can make that loop. So let's first make a little bit of cleanup here. So I'm gonna just make a folder called comp and bring all this in there. So I'm gonna duplicate that, so we just have this as a basic. So instead of having our TAO sphere, we're gonna have some emitter emitting spheres. So let's do that. Let's start off by first not having a TAO sphere, so we're just gonna have TAO. If we refresh now, we won't see our sphere, we won't see anything because our light is not keyframed. All right, we want to attach that to our null, and what we want to add some basic wiggling to our null, if we can do that. So let's get to Dan Ebert's expression, which I like to use. And we're gonna add that to the position of our null, because we're gonna keep the position of the light for more expressions. So let's go and alt click on the null position and let's paste the Dan Ebert. Why won't it let me paste it? Because I pasted it twice, so let's paste it once. And now let's make sure that the light is auto-orient is set to off, and it's gonna loop for 3 seconds. So let's keep that as a default. So this technique we're gonna use the build-up technique. So let's first make the paths from TAO lights. Let's make the duration, if no keyframes, let's make this 6. And let's also make sure that we are emitting spheres, and that our spheres have more than 3 sides. Of course, we can start with 12 and add more as we go around. Can we decrease their size? Let's keep it at 100 here at first, and let's make it 100 here. So that's the size we have by default. So let's make both these purple, so it's clear that they're in the same group. And let's add some custom settings. So let's call that settings, and let's add expression controls, a slider control. So we're gonna add 3. We're gonna call this one Frec, and let's hit Control D to duplicate, Frec amp, and seed random. So let's add a first line of code here, and we're going to type down seed random and open parentheses, pick whip this. So it's going to punch in this value here. Whatever we put in there is going to allow us to randomize the seed of our wiggle. So that's one thing. Next, we're going to simply select the number 1 here and connect it to the frequency. So now it's going to get back to they're all going to be at the same place, because Frec is set to 0. Let's set it back to 1. And the amplitude, now this amplitude, let's set it to 110, because it's that's the value we have here, and it's connected to that. So now we're gonna have also control on how it's getting spreaded around. All right, cool. So now we can shut this off easily by going clicking on this icon here. Let's save this. So let's shut it off, and let's also have this circular motion on our ball. So let's try that. I'm gonna simply Google it. So AE expression circle there. I have this reference, really random here. I'm gonna simply paste this patch of code here. Yeah, let's get this. This is a circular motion. So I'm gonna hit P with the light. I'm gonna hit Alt and click on the stopwatch here and hit Control V to paste the code. And I'm gonna make sure that the center is set to 0, 0, and 0, because this is what we get by default. So if you can surely figure it out that we kind of had it. Hey, isn't the camera supposed to be? My camera is supposed to be connected to the BG. Why isn't it? Why isn't it rotating with it? Yeah, because we duplicated the comp now, and well, everything that we're doing is connected to this comp. So let's work from this comp. I'm gonna get back in this, and and let's undo what I've done there, and I'm simply gonna pick up the TAO. I need to bring the setting and the light. That's what I changed. So let's bring that. Let's paste that over here, and let's remove our sphere, and let's look at what are the problems here. We're still extruding. Let's make sure that we're emitting spheres. So segment, repeat sphere, and half to offside on the sphere. All right. So what we're having now it works. So what we're having is some kind of rotation with our sphere, but we want if we want the other angle. Now perhaps that's not what we want. So let's just invert both of these. So instead of Y, we're gonna type Z, and instead of Z, we're gonna type Y. So it's gonna just alter the angle on which it is. And let's get back in the settings here, and let's add a couple more. So U here to reveal that, and I'm gonna lock down and this over here to keep this visible, and the radius and the angle time. So let's duplicate that radius, and let's duplicate that, and angle. So let's make this 200, and let's make this 300. So this now we can connect to that, and that we can connect to that. So let's make the angle 360, and that's gonna make it sorry about that. Now this is rotating this way, and this is rotating this way, and this is rotating this way. This is not correct. Alright, so basically what we want to make sure is that let's set up our loop point. So at 90 it's gonna be our first frame, so let's hit shift 1 and let's hit B to start our work area there, and at not 1000 but 180 it's gonna be 6-second mark, our very last frame that we're not gonna render because our last one is gonna be 179. And let's get in TAO, and now I don't see it anymore because this is there, so I'm gonna hit F3. I'm gonna bring this down there, and this can come up over here. So duration if no keyframes, let's set that to 6, And let's increase the amount of balls. And let's uncheck orient to path, so they are all their path doesn't mess around their orientation. So we have something like that for a distribution. And what we want to make sure of also is that this is set to build up. All right, so let's get a frame 0. Build up is gonna do that. All right, so if we look at the position values, and let's look at our light, at what it's doing. So it's doing 1, 2, 3 revolution until it goes to back to number 1 here. So we want just to make sure that this value here is the same as here. It doesn't matter if this is set to minus, but we want that is going to be important for us to loop, and this is in relation with the angle here. So right now we're doing 1, 2 and 3 rotations, but we're have the right number because we're there, and it loops. So we need to divide this by 3, I think. So let's do that. Let's have it 120. We're still 300 and 0, the same. And if we look at that, now it's going slower, and it's just revolving once. So that's how we make sure that it's looping. So now it's gonna do the same again, and if we add our wiggle to that, so I can just set it back in there, and it's way through the top. So let's decrease its amplitude. Let's set that to 20 only. So basically this is just a way to add a little bit of randomness in their position while they're being distributed as a circle. So that's interesting. Let's set up a falling motion with the OAS that we're going to be able to loop it without any keyframes, just with the build up. So let's go to offset, and let's twirl down the offset animation sequence and activate it. And let's simply make a keyframe. We can keep this at 6 as well, as if we want to be coherent with what we've set for the lifetime of geometry creation. And let's create a keyframe on the OAS position Y, and let's get to the very last keyframe in here, and we can drop it down like such. So as it revolves, like it's gonna go down at the same time. And if we look at frame 1 and at frame 3, as long as we bring this further enough, it's gonna loop between this frame and this frame. So this is really basic. Let's test it out. And it's just gonna like make looping stare like such. It says the wiggle is also looping. They're when it's going back on the path, it's doing they're placed at the exact same position, so that's good. We want where they appear, we want it to be higher than us, so that would be something that would make it help it that we don't see it where it appears. So if we do that, now we don't necessarily see where they appear, but they need to go further down if we want to. And I think that we did actually change the angle on the camera, did we? I'm not sure that we're looking quite down the floor there. So we can't delete the camera to reset it. Can we reset it by doing like such? No. Let's reset it But yeah, I've disconnected it from the dolly and then I resetted it. So now it's correct. And let's now connect it to the dolly. No? Okay, so let's now set the dolly to 0 and 0. So everything is back to normal. And let's connect the camera to the dolly. And let's now turn it. Alright. And that'll be sufficient for me. So from frame 1 to frame 3, as long as we go down enough, it's gonna loop. Oh, I'm starting to get issues with the rendering. I'm gonna lower it down on the quality, so now we still see them appear. We need to bring them upwards, and now we have our looping thing. Now it's easy for us to have more rotation. So we know that this is one rotation. We can multiply this by 2, then it's still gonna work, but it's gonna have twice as much rotation in it. Pretty cool. And as long as we keep the numbers working, we can duplicate it to any kind of number and it's gonna work for the rotation. So that's one more. Or let's set it back to 360. Let's have 3, and we can also increase the amount of segments. So let's get back in segments, and 33 now is not enough. Let's put 56. Now you see it looped all before, but now I'm 56. It doesn't work. 33, 1, 3 is the same. 34, 1, 3, it's not the same. So there's a pattern here. If we have, like, I don't know why, but if we have an even value here, and this loop trick doesn't work with repeated shapes. But as long as we keep this an odd number, so 37, it's gonna work. So even if the number is very high, like 223, it's gonna work as long as we keep it uneven for this value here. So let's set to the 87, and now that's cool because we can get back in our settings. Here they are, and we can increase the amplitude, so that spreads them a little bit more, and increase the frequency, so the frequency like at which they get displaced will be increased. So that's another thing. I think we have a bit too much, so let's decrease this down to 55 maybe. But now they have all the same rotation angle, and if we were to go in here to change the random rotation and anything that we would change in here, in fact, like the rotation, not the rotation Y, but the rotation like X and Z, like it'll randomize it in here and it would seem pretty fine. But now if we verify the loop, all the position and everything is correct, but this doesn't loop. As it goes the first time, it'll be some random values, and as it goes the second time, it'll be different. So we still have to get this thing looping, but we can, because we have the rotation angle here. So our light there, and it's not 0, 0, 0, but our light here, we can randomize these. So Y and X and Z doesn't really matter, but it will also help. So let's add the wiggle formula. So let's pick it up from here. We have it there. We don't need the first line. We have it there. So let's grab this and let's paste this in the rotation. Paste. And now let's set the amplitude to 360 because 360 degrees, and 300 the frequency. So I think that it's gonna do a good job in randomizing this. So this is the X only randomized, and if we look at frame, first frame and last frame, well, only this few ones are gonna be the tiny different angle, and I'm not sure why. Let's refresh, and sometimes that are gonna be some issues like that, but mostly it's gonna work. And let's copy that to do the same on the Y. So also on the Y, and also why not on the Z, just to randomize it a little bit more, even if it doesn't change anything on this angle. So that's how we can simply change their rotation angle and have them get random rotation angle but still be able to loop like that. So that's quite interesting. And what if we want them to animate the rotation? We can go back down in the offset animation sequence, and we can keyframe those simply. So as long as we go on the first frame, and let's simply add a keyframe for all those, and get on last, and simply increase, like depending on the speed you want, just mess around with those values there, and it should have them rotate. And since the way we've set it up, we don't see these, like, it doesn't matter, this doesn't need to be 360 and to loop perfectly, but in some other cases where you still have your elements visible and you want it to loop, it might be the case, but not in this. So that's fine, that's cool. Let's have more dispersion to that. So or we can increase the radius of our spiraling shape there, and we can increase the amplitude of our wiggle here, and the frequency. So that's gonna get us an entirely different composition, distribution of balls. So you might want to randomize the seed randoms here and there to get and make sure that you have values that they won't touch if you don't want them to touch. Let's try multiplying that by 2, so we have twice as much spirals, and now they seem more like randomly but realistically distributed, if that can be a point. There can be a point of comparison for that, but like that's the kind of control we have easily with that kind of setup. And our material that we've created in the first part of this tutorial applies to that. We still have the issues that the sides, like, we just need to basically increase the amount of sides. If we put 36, then they'll become smoother, and I think that's pretty much it for this tutorial. There's much more stuff that you would do. I mean, you can keyframe this if you want. Like, we can add the Dan Ebert wiggle to that. Maybe, I don't know if it's gonna be a good idea. Let's try it. So let's try the OS position Y. So let's alt click that, and let's paste our Dan Ebert, not 300 of frequency, but let's try 0.5 to start. And that our that is gonna make them wobble on one of the axes. And let's try on the X instead. So that might not be exactly what you are aiming for. Let's try on the Z. So that's given them a little bit more of a wobble to them, and I don't know if that changes anything, but maybe you want the position to be calculated first, and in this particular case it changes the way it behaves, but it should not always be the case necessarily. So let's increase that just to look at what we're doing, and we're adding a little bit more randomness in there. It's pretty fine. So I can see a lot of ways that you can create nice loops using this technique, and of course these are the balls that we're using, but can be anything else, and this also works with extruded paths, but I just wanted to show you especially about the even and the uneven segment amount, that what can be a few issues that you perhaps would have trying to set this up like this, and try to fix them in a preventive way. So yeah, that's about pretty much what I have to show you today, and as always, thank you very much for watching. See you next time.